Kevin Harvick's crew chief says they're bringing one car to Daytona for the entire week. Meanwhile, The Athletic says JTG Doherty Racing may be looking for a way out of the Cup Series. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Lots to talk about today. It's Clash Week. I keep hyping it up, but yes, the LA Clash will be this weekend on Fox. I will be there in person along with 50,000 of my best racing friends, my new racing friends. Hopefully I see a lot of y'all out at the track this weekend. I cannot wait, but we've got a lot of news to cover in the meantime. One of my favorite post-race podcasts to listen to during the season is The Teardown. That's The Athletics podcast featuring Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi. They released a season preview episode earlier this week, and towards the end, when talking about JTG Doherty, reporter Jordan Bianchi slipped in a detail about JTG Doherty, saying that they've been looking for a way out of the Cup Series and may still be looking for a way out of NASCAR.
How committed is JTG to NASCAR? There's been a lot of, I think, not even rumors. I mean, it's a fact. Like, they have had conversations about getting out. Those conversations probably aren't going to go away because there's a lot of people that want to come into NASCAR right now and are looking at it. This is a charter that can be had. And so, as this is going on, what is the commitment level here?
He also says in their most recent episode that he spoke to Brad Doherty, co-owner of the team last year, and Brad said the team receives little to no support from Chevrolet. That could be a contributing factor. I don't have a whole lot to say about this. It's not shocking. I mean, look at the recent trend of JTG Doherty. They were a multi-car team. Now this year they're a single car team. They only have one charter, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is a fine veteran driver when he's not overdriving and crashing. But I think we've seen Ricky Stenhouse's peak, and it's maybe a playoff driver at best. JTG Doherty does not appear to have a super bright future. They've had loyal support from Kroger and their many partners, but I have to imagine the owners have looked around this offseason and seen the crazy prices that charters have been selling for, and they've got to be sitting back and thinking about maybe cashing out and cutting their losses. Now, as Denny Hamlin, I believe, mentioned a couple months ago, most teams that were desperate to get charters before the 2022 season now have one. So if a team like JTG Doherty were to put their charter up on the market, I don't know if it would sell for the $10 or almost $15 million some of the other recent charters have sold for. Like, I don't think the demand right now is quite as high as it was 2 or 3 months ago when, like, 23XI was still trying to get a charter for Kurt Busch. So obviously JTG Doherty is racing full-time this season with Ricky Stenhouse Jr., but this is just a story to kind of keep an eye on in the background over the next many months and maybe the next couple of years. Just wanted to mention that here on the top of the show. Now, we've got some breaking news this afternoon. The Money Team is legit. Today, the Money Team, Floyd Mayweather's new NASCAR Cup Series effort, revealed their Daytona 500 car, their paint scheme. Oh geez, I need some sunglasses. Which, oh my gosh, I guess that's the point. One of the sponsors, Pit Viper Shades. Okay, actually, points for theming in that case. I didn't even read the logo on the side and I was already blinded. Well played, well played. I mean, car's an eyesore, quite honestly. I like the bright colors, but this is too much. Anyway, that's not the point. Kaz Grala, as was reported a week or two ago, will be the driver. They are an open team. They don't have a charter, so they're gonna have to race their way in. As we've talked about recently, good chance we have 41, 42, maybe even 43 cars attempt to make the Daytona 500 this year, so the duels will be interesting on Thursday. I will say, it appears as though Floyd Mayweather himself is more involved, more aware of this effort than I initially thought, or at least hypothesized. I love fast cars and I love to compete. I know NASCAR will not be easy, but anything easy isn't worth doing to me. With that being said, this move into auto racing seems to be a perfect fit for the Mayweather brand. That was a quote from Floyd Mayweather in the statement they released today. This team says they're going to attempt to run a select number of races this year. They actually hired veteran Tony Uri Jr. to be the crew chief for at least the Daytona 500. That's notable. Look, I still don't fully know what to make of this team. Will they be around for the long haul? Is this a one and done? I have no idea. But this is yet another example, the latest example of a mainstream celebrity getting into NASCAR as an owner of sorts, investing into stock car racing. Michael Jordan, Pitbull, and now Floyd Mayweather. That 50-0 record, probably not gonna last for very long, but hey, it's racing. It's a completely different sport. You gotta be happy with a top 15, a top 20 sometimes. It's cool. The more cars, the better. I mean, they're not stealing a spot from anyone in the Daytona 500. If they make the race, they earn it. They went out and got it done. Be interesting to see if this team grows into anything bigger than what it currently is, but honestly, I'm just shocked that the money team is actually real, that they have an actual paint scheme, an actual car, and they will be on track in an actual NASCAR sanctioned event later this month. That's huge. It's sunk in finally. When this was first reported last week, it was shocking, but I've had some time to sit on it and think about it, and it actually starts to feel real now. Now it is real. Crazy, crazy stuff. The big story that caught my attention late last night came from Rodney Childers' Twitter fingers. Rodney Childers, of course, Kevin Harvick's crew chief in the NASCAR Cup Series. They've won championship together. He tweeted last night, in response to a fan asking about the 2022 team photo, Childers said they'll take the photo before we load for the Daytona 500 like normal. Will be a little odd with only one car. Got a little facepalm emoji going there. And he followed that up because somebody then inquired, wait, only one car? What about the backup? I mean, there's a lot of racing during Speed Week. You got qualifying, you got the duels, then of course the 500 itself. This fan asked if they're only bringing one car because maybe the next gen's just really easy to repair. And Rodney Childers replied, only one because we can't get parts to build the backup car. Oh, another emoji. Oh, a surprise face. I can't imagine Rodney Childers doing a surprise face. I've never seen any emotion from that man. Now, Bob Pockers from Fox Sports later in the evening tweeted this, checked with Childers, has the Clash car plus Daytona car pretty much done. Clash car needs updates, but teams can use the initial test car for the Clash prior to some chassis and suspension updates. Team has 2 other cars being worked on, but they need parts and are likely not ready for when the haulers leave for Daytona. This is big news. So Kevin Harvick, the 4 team, led by Rodney Childers, may only have one car ready for the Daytona 500. One car, again, for qualifying, which, unless they blow a tire or something, probably not going to wreck it there. But also for the duels, which, there is a good chance of getting caught up in a huge mess and destroying your primary. And then for the Daytona 500 itself, if there was any race on the schedule that you really want a backup car for, it's Speed Week, the week before the Daytona 500. I remember back in 2013, didn't Carl Edwards go through 4 cars during Speed Weeks between the Clash, the duels, the 500? Practice, I think, as well. He couldn't catch a break that week. What if that happens this year to Kevin Harvick's team? Because it's plausible. So needless to say, these tweets got my attention. They've gotten a lot of people's attention because this is a huge concern if what Rodney Childers and Bob Pockers are saying there is true. Now, many of the supply issues, distribution issues surrounding the next gen car have been very well documented. And I'll say this, much of those issues are well beyond NASCAR's control. Supply shortages, material shortages, distribution delays, labor shortages. Obviously, there has still been a pandemic the last couple of years. I know earlier this season, the pandemic delayed NASCAR's ability to first crash test the car in real action. So a lot of those issues have been largely beyond NASCAR's control. But I'm not going to completely absolve NASCAR of all responsibility. Teams are scrambling right now because, frankly, in the last couple months, NASCAR's made several major last-minute design changes. Changes to the front and rear clips to soften the impact in the case of a crash. Overheating issues in the car. They had to shorten the exhaust pipe. They had to add slits in the front and rear windshields to help with airflow. Steering rack issues back at the Roval. They had to deal with that one week. And just in the last month, they've completely reversed course as far as horsepower and spoiler height. They've increased the horsepower. They've shortened the spoiler at many tracks. I know a lot of the next-gen car was developed through simulation, but this just proves simulation obviously is a great tool, but you can't design a successful race car from the ground up based solely on virtual simulation. So needless to say, NASCAR and the teams are in a tricky spot going into Daytona. A few weeks ago during the Daytona test, you had team owners like Richard Childress saying he expected to have 3 or 4 cars per driver ready by the start of the season. Obviously, the West Coast swing immediately after the Daytona 500 has, I think, some teams a little concerned about logistics. But as we get ready for the Clash, which we now know teams will be allowed to use their test cars for, which won't have the fully updated front and rear clips, what do NASCAR Cup Series teams actually have right now? Do they have enough parts and pieces? Do they have enough cars? Do they have enough time to bring a primary and a backup to the Daytona 500? One idea that's been thrown around is that theoretically some teams, including perhaps Kevin Harvick's team, could use their Clash car as their Daytona 500 backup, which previously would have been unheard of with the Gen 6, a short track car built to run on a quarter-mile bull ring being used at a super speedway, the biggest race on the schedule. That wouldn't have even been really possible. But with the next gen car being sort of a one-size-fits-all car, just swap out some parts and pieces here and there. I'm naive to it. I'm sure it's more work than I'm making it sound. But theoretically, yes, over the course of the next 2 weeks, a Clash car built for a short track could be outfitted to run on a super speedway, probably as a backup. So teams will have their Clash car as a backup in case of a dire situation. Teams, it's safe to say, are probably stockpiling 1 or 2 cars for the West Coast swing, because again, after Daytona, they head straight back to California for Auto Club, then Phoenix, then Las Vegas, or whatever the exact order is. Point is, they're going to be out on the West Coast for a few weeks straight. They need to have cars ready for that. Another theory is that if things get really desperate and a team needs a backup car before the Daytona 500. Daytona Beach is a long afternoon's drive away from Charlotte. I'm sure a team could bring their Las Vegas car or their Auto Club car down in a pinch and use it for the Daytona 500 if they absolutely have to. Now that might put the team behind for the West Coast swing, which would open up a whole bunch of other issues and possibilities, but it's the Daytona 500. You can't miss the Daytona 500, especially if you're a Kevin Harvick. And I know we're talking about Kevin Harvick and the 4 team right here. I mean, that's Stewart Haas Racing, that's a huge team. We're only talking about them because, their crew chief made public how many cars they have. But I wouldn't be shocked if other big teams are dealing with very similar shortages. Like, I don't know, Joe Gibbs Racing drivers may only have 1.5 cars ready for the 500. I don't know how bad it gets. I don't know how widespread it is. If this was, the money team or whatever, and they're saying, oh, we only have 1 car, we're only bringing 1 to the 500 because that's all we could get our hands on, I'd at least somewhat understand it. I mean, they don't have a charter. They're a brand new startup program getting off the ground. But this is a chartered team, a championship contending team for a top tier organization. Kevin Harvick only having 1 car down in Daytona for that entire week is a concern. I'm a little more worried now than I was 3 or 4 weeks ago. I'm not panicked. I don't want this video to come across as panic time. Oh my gosh, guys are gonna be missing races. Remember, NASCAR said a couple weeks ago they do not anticipate these supply shortages affecting teams to the point that someone would have to miss a race, but it's not completely improbable at this point, and clearly the supply shortages are being felt by the teams more than maybe we initially realized. We're only 2.5 weeks from the Daytona 500. Gonna be some sleepless nights ahead, I've got a feeling, but that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a comment down below. How do you feel about Kaz Grala and the money team running the Daytona 500? What are your thoughts on the part shortages? Rodney Childers' tweets. Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR news, notes, rumors, predictions, and much, much more day in, day out here on Out of the Groove. And as always, a big thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters. New season is right around the corner. I wouldn't be able to do this show without your tremendous support. More to come this week before the season gets kicked off with the Clash. I know it's not a points race, but it's basically the start of the season. I will see you all again very, very soon. Thanks for watching.